Today we're setting ourselves up for success by going over the best Rainbow Six settings for you. Well, technically, they're my settings. I'm going to be going through all of my settings, explain why I use them, and also which settings are good to not only give you better performance, but maybe even give you a competitive edge. So we're going to maximize our competitiveness for maximum gameplay strength while also making sure our game actually runs not like a potato, right? Let's get into it, starting off with the general settings. Now, if you turn your ping/communication wheel off, you won't get pings or notifications in-game from your teammate, and that's not good. You want the alerts, so leave this on, please, or you're probably just throwing elo down the drain. If you're looking for how well your game is running, you can display your performance metrics by turning this to minimal or advanced metrics. I typically just leave it off because I don't look at it too often, but if I'm ever trying to check what my FPS is, that's where you do it. Your connectivity feedback is going to show you all of these things, so when you're lagging, when your FPS is dropping really bad, when you're jittering, when you have latency, and this is pretty much all the time because I have Starlink, so that's always showing up in the bottom right corner. If you're looking for it and you have terrible internet, you know what I'm talking about. Your stun VFX is going to be whether you want it white or dark, so if you don't want to get flashbanged in real life when you get flashbanged in game, you can turn this to dark, but I actually prefer the white glare, so that's what I use. Your tinnitus sound effects, a lot of people think you turn this to muted and you can still hear when you get flashbanged. You cannot. That is not the case. I just leave it on ringing because there's actually no advantage to having it muted outside of it doesn't actually make the noise, so it might sound nice on your ears. You can also do this like wave one, but it doesn't change the competitive edge, and that's something to clarify because a lot of people think that it does. For diffuser pickup, you want to set this to both. It's very important. If you have it to automatic, it will only pick it up when you run over top of it, but if you set it to manual, it will only pick it up if you hold down the button. By having both on, you're able to simply run over it and grab it without having to look directly at it and take your sights off where you're looking, but at the same time, you can reach and grab it if it's in an unideal spot so that you don't have to fully expose yourself to the defenders. So having this on both is really, really important. Your visible throw trajectory is just going to be the difference between having the line when you throw the grenade or the C4 and not having the line. Usually it's really good to see if you're trying to line something up and if it's going to stick to a wall or not, or stick to something you didn't ideally intend it for, or bounce in a weird direction. So having this on is useful and is very nice. Drone after prep, you're going to want to set this to manual, because if you have it to automatic, it's going to instantly kick you off the drone the second the prep phase ends, meaning your drone might be left in a really terrible spot in the middle of the open, in which case you want the extra second or two to just tuck it away and actually preserve that info. And if you have it to semi-automatic, it will only kick you off if you're on someone else's drone, in which case you don't want that to happen, because what if you're trying to hold a drone for a teammate? If your teammate's trying to take space quickly and you know that one side of the map is clear because of their drone, you want to stay on that drone and you don't want it to kick you off, because that could be the second of window that the defender crosses that line of sight and actually gets into that position and kills your teammate because of it. So this could actually affect an entire outcome of a round. So put it on manual and just get used to it. It's definitely worth it. If you don't want all your match replays saving on your PC, you want to save a little extra room, whatever, you can turn match replay off, but it's not super important. Now I'm on the other side of the screen. Obviously your text chat channel, this is where you can turn to team chat, disabled, all. I just have team chat on because I find the all chats very distracting. If you're on PC and you like typing the all chat, it's probably taken away from your performance in the game because you're too busy typing, which I see my friends do all the time and it drives me insane. So just turn it to team chat or turn it off and you'll probably play way better, to be honest. Moving on to our HUD settings. There's only one setting that I change in my HUD. If you just do normal settings, the only thing I turn off is gameplay warnings, because they pop up and I think they're annoying and I'm not reading them in the middle of the round. Now these are good if you're like super new, but otherwise I find they're just a distraction and not really necessary. So that's the only thing I'm turning off in my HUD settings. But if you want no HUD, you want to completely turn it off, to switch this to cinematic. You can get some nice little thumbnail screenshots if you're interested in content. That's the way to do it. And then you can always go back to your normal with that gameplay warning off if that's also what you like. Moving on to our audio settings, another big one. You got to be able to hear the game. Audio is a lot of info in this game, so make sure your audio is working properly. This is where you would turn your subtitles on, change your dynamic range. This is like TV versus hi-fi. I think high is actually a lot better, but that's, again, preference. Some people might find that you can hear better on low. There was an audio bug before. I'm not sure if that's still the case. Setting it to high, I find works very, very well for me, at least. The tinnitus setting is also here if you somehow lose it in your general settings. Your in-game sound effects is going to be all audio that is not voiceovers or music. So you want this up. This is footsteps, but it's also gunshots. There's no way to just make footsteps louder, okay? A lot of people ask that. It's not possible. I'm sorry. Music, I just turn it off. I just don't use it. I don't like it. I don't care. So I turn that off. I like the little clicking and the menu sound effects, so I leave that all the way up. Your voiceover presets, you can just change it to like gameplay focused or team focused or minimal to have less voiceover actually happening. I think most of the voiceover in this game is good information outside of like the operators chatting, which is really the only difference between like maximum and gameplay focus. I think that's fun though, and I like it, and they're only really doing it early in the round, so I leave it on. The in-game announcer is one people might turn off because he's saying 10 seconds remaining and can be really loud and kind of distract you in a clutch. If that's the case, it's physically distracting you and worrying you and stressing you out, turn it off. Otherwise, leave it on because that information is super valuable. Knowing there's 10 seconds without having to look up at the clock can actually help you clutch around potentially. So I leave it on for that reason, but you don't have to if you don't like it. If you want to be able to hear your game when you're tabbed out of the game, if you're on PC, leave this on off. Otherwise, turn it on, and then you're completely going to lose the audio of the game when you tab out. So that way, if you're tabbing out and trying to watch a video or something, you don't want to hear the game, that's the way to change it. Make sure your input device is set to your microphone. Some people have this set to the webcam microphone, and then they sound like dog water. Make sure this is set to your actual mic. Otherwise, you're going to sound
like you're swimming underwater or deep fried in a microwave.
And then to actually hear what you're hearing from, make sure this is not set to your monitor and actually set to your earbuds/headphones so that you can hear the game properly out of your devices. If the sound isn't coming from the right place, this is why. I don't know why my voice chat is disabled. It's definitely not disabled. I'm going to put it to enabled. That way you can hear your teammates. You definitely want this on. Your voice chat volume is how loud your teammates will be. So if they're super loud to the point where you can't hear the game, you probably want to turn this down. I have mine set at 77, works for me. And then please, if you're on PC, please put your mic to push to talk. Nobody likes the open mic on PC. It's just spraying in background noise, and we can hear your dog taking a dump or your mom yelling at you, calling you a little bitch in the background. I don't want to hear that. I'm trying to play my game, dude. Okay, put it on push to talk, set a keybind for it. If you're new to the game, this should be priority number one. I'm not going to lie. Input volume is going to be your mic volume for the game. So if you're really quiet to everyone, this is what you want to turn up. And then your input sensitivity, that's if you're using push to talk. Don't use push to talk. Let's not even talk about it. Moving on to our display settings, which is fairly important, especially if you don't know how to set up your monitor. This is going to be some big ones here if you are new to PC gaming or Siege gaming even. This is where you'll pick your monitor, which one it actually launches up on. I have an ultra wide monitor, as you can see by the resolution. You want to make sure this is the same resolution as your monitor. Otherwise, you're probably just losing nice quality gameplay, okay? Your refresh rate is absolutely massive, okay? If you have a 144 hertz monitor and you have this set to 60, your game will only give you 60 hertz and it will look really choppy still. So if you get a better monitor and you upgrade the hertz of it, go to the highest possible one, because that's what your monitor is typically. I have a 160 hertz ultra wide. So I run 160 hertz, okay? Aspect ratio is also gonna be super important. I run 1610, but this is more like 4:3 from my perspective. For you guys, it looks like 1610, but from my perspective, it's more stretched because again, it is on the ultra wide, but then I changed the format for YouTube. I really like the 1610 even on a regular monitor. 4:3 or 3:2 was also something I've used a lot, and then 16:9 is like the default Siege aspect ratio that the game is meant to be played at. So if you want to play the way the game is meant to be, it's 16:9, or you can just turn it to automatic. You know, if you have the ultra wide, you can turn it to 21:9, and then it'll be more like that 16:9. Anyway, leave VSync off. It can just be super bad, so it's just not recommended for competitive games. So just take it off for Rainbow Six. No need to use it. Boo, boo, boo. Shitty. Okay, no VSync here. Okay, guys. And then there's gonna be that one guy in the comments like, no, VSync is really good for this. And then I'll be like, okay, well, the guy's probably right, because I don't actually know that much about it. I just heard it's like not that good. An FPS limit can be good if you realize you're getting a lot of tearing with your game. However, there's a better way to set it in your game files so that you can get it to a higher resolution. So the FPS limit can only go up to 144. I have mine set to 160 though, and I'll show you how to do that in my game files. I use 83 field of view. I just like it. I mean, if you want a wider field of view, you turn it up. If you want a smaller field of view, you turn it down. This is default to 60 though, so definitely turn it up. It just lets you see more in the game, which is a good thing, because the more you see, the more info you have. If you see a super ton amount, then you might miss some of the details. So I think 83 is a nice sweet spot, and that's what I use. HUD display area. This is going to show you where your in-game HUD actually displays. I have mine set to 87. Because I have that ultra wide, I have to look really far to see my HUD to the very corners. so that way it tucks it in a little bit more and I can see all the information that I need a little bit easier. Menu display area, this is, as you can tell, just changing how big your menu is. I just like a little smaller menu for the same reasons so that I don't have to look around as much. This is where you change your brightness as well. I have mine set to 55. I mean, 100 brightness is a little crazy. 0 brightness, also kind of crazy. But if you want to play some hide and seek in the dark or something with your friends, you could all turn your brightness down to 0 and have a good time. Moving on to the graphics, this is going to be a very, very, very important part of your gameplay. Now, there are 2 ways to go about this. You can go for the best possible graphics for your system, or you can just maximize performance, okay? Theoretically, I could kind of turn this all onto ultra and be fine, but I don't need to. So here's one way to go about it. Firstly, you can turn this all to low and then change just these settings, which are the most important one. Shadow quality. This is going to let you see shadows. If you have this on low, you won't see shadows. You won't see your own shadows. You won't see enemy shadows. Turning this to medium will actually show you the shadows. And this is really important because in some spots, when you peek, your shadow actually peeks ahead of you, which allows the other person to pre-fire you and gain the advantage. So knowing where the shadows are is going to be very helpful, not only for you to see enemy shadows, but for you to be aware of where your shadow is. The next thing you'll want to turn on is NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency. If you have it on, it will take more from your CPU. On plus boost will take a little more from your graphics card and not be as hard on your CPU. Because I have a 4080 graphics card, I just put on plus boost. So we're having the best like NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency, which is just optimal for FPS, gaining FPS, sorry. The other thing you want to change is your render scaling. Sometimes it will set this to 50, turn it to 100. That way the game will actually render at the resolution of your monitor to avoid this really like jittery, like scribbly, ugly ass like thing that goes on. 50 is okay. Like you can realistically use this at like 60. Turning this to 25 is just absolutely disgusting. And then I have my TAA sharpness on 60, which, you know, sharpness of the game. So this is going to be the best case scenario for if you just want max performance, low everything, and then 100 render scaling. If your PC can handle that, hopefully it can. The other thing you could do is turn your texture filtering up to 16x, which I find just makes the visual quality just look a little bit better. And then you can also turn your visual effects quality up to something like medium or high, because it doesn't add much strain on your GPU. What's really going to add a lot of strain on your system is your texture quality. You can see if I switch this to very high, it just freaking boost up there, that little white bar is something you want to pay attention to while you're doing this, but it'll boost up and cause more performance issues on your system. Now, in terms of what I actually run, because my PC is pretty beefy and can handle most things, I firstly turn this up to high. High graphics, texture quality, just to look better. I mean, I make videos, so I want it to look pretty decent, so I turn it up to high. I turn my texture filtering all the way up. LOD quality, I turn to ultra, just so I have good shapes as far as possible. So I just want to be able to see stuff far away too, and I don't want weird things disappearing in the distance and whatnot. Shadow quality, I actually just like the way the shadows look when they're on like very high, so I turn them up. Reflection quality is low. You don't really need good reflections. Ambient occlusion is the next one, and you just want to leave this off. What will happen is it will make darker spots a little bit darker. Maybe it's more immersive. If you want a little bit of immersion, you can turn this to SSBC+, but if you want to be able to see people and you want them to actually pop out of locations, having this off is the best way to do it. For your lens effects, you can have bloom and lens flare on. It'll just make things look more nice and have nicer lighting, and like the sun on Villa is more cinematic, so it does give a nice look to the game. You know, some gear glows a little bit differently, Valcams glow more, etc., but sometimes it can also hurt you because there's brighter light shining in your eyes and you can't see as well, and it kind of can throw off your competitive edge. So for competitivity, I leave that off. Zoom in depth of field I also leave off. This just makes your scope blurry when you zoom in, which is just like stupid, and I don't like it. I mean, if you like it, leave it on. But next we have something that's very bad, which is NVIDIA Deep Learning Super Sampling. Turn this on if you want your game to look absolutely dog water, okay? Now, this is really only good if your system cannot run the game. If you absolutely need something to make your game run smoother, you can turn this on, but otherwise just leave it off, okay? I actually found that the fidelity effects, if you have an AMD card, the fidelity effects actually looks a lot better better than the DLSS. So that would be my first attempt at fixing my issues. If my system wasn't able to run stuff, I would probably try this first. And then if not, I guess if you gotta go to the DLSS, you gotta go to the DLSS, boys. What can I say? Anti-aliasing is a big one. You want to make sure this is not off, because basically the game is made with the fact that TAA is going to run on it. And the second you turn this off, the game just looks horrible. Put it on TAA, just have the best quality. Again, if you can afford it. TAA 2X or 4X is going to look better, but it's going to nuke your frames. It is going to blast your PC from behind, and it's not going to work very well. So TAA off if you really have to, but TAA is going to be, let's try this first, all right, boys? And again, you want that 100 for the render scaling so it's not nuking your quality. Moving on to my controls. Poxonlox controls. Wow. Raw input on. I mean, you could read it for yourself. It interprets raw data from your keyboard and mouse, which improves reactivity. More reactivity equals better, right, guys? I run 8 horizontal vertical sense, and I run 800 DPI, which I always forget to say, but I have 800 DPI on my mouse, and then these are my ADS sensitivities. I have it on advanced 90, 160, 200, 200, 200. However, there's one thing, which is my in-game files that I have changed. So I have a mouse multiplier that I use. I originally came up with it when I translated from old sense to new sense, which was a big thing when like 0 came out that season, is like sense got all thrown around and this was introduced. So I have a mouse multiplier. I'll show you how to do that right now in your settings to get into your game files, which will also show you how to do the FPS limit. So let's go there and I'll show you that before we head into the rest of the controls. All right, once you're on the home screen of your PC, and you can't do this on console, I apologize, but you go to Documents, My Games, Rainbow Six Siege, and then you find your account. If you only have one account, it'll be the only one here. These are just different accounts that I've logged into. I know mine's the CFA one, and then you go to your game settings or test server if you're trying to change your test server settings, and it'll open up a little notepad with all of the game settings in them. So the first thing is our ADS multiplier, mouse multiplier unit, and that's right here. This is default 0.02, I believe, and mine is 0.005301. So it almost reduces my ADS sense by a quarter. So if you see my 90 ADS speed on one time site, that's really closer to something like 15 or 20. Now, the second thing we can do in these game files is set our FPS limit. Basically just stop our PC from trying to use as much FPS as possible all the time. Whatever your monitor refresh rate is, you don't really need that much more FPS than that, because it's only refreshing at that speed anyway. So you can see I have my FPS limit set to 165. The reason for this is my monitor's 160 refresh rate. I could just change this to 160, I guess, but I'd just do 165 because why not? Why not have a little bit of fun? You know what I'm saying? So my game won't actually go over 165 FPS in the game metrics. So that's the way to set that if you want it more than that 144 that you can stick it to in your settings. Okay, back to our controls. I've actually got my mouse scroll disabled, and the reason for that is sometimes you'll start to scroll and get kind of like this half scroll and your mouse almost gets stuck, and then when you shoot or aim, it will finish the scroll and then it'll switch your guns, which I really don't like. So I have trained myself to just not use the scroll wheel and instead use a keybind to switch guns, which to be fair is like slightly better because I don't have that screwing me over ever. These next two are also really important. You want your gadget deployment to advance and your drone deployment to advance as well. With the gadget deployment, this allows you to stop a thermite charge halfway through, for example, or stop the placement of a claymore, and that lets you exit the animation for if someone is pushing or peeking you, or if they're bandit tricking, for example. So having this on advance is much better. In terms of your drone deployment, this allows you to throw a drone without instantly getting onto it, which allows you to throw the drone and then hide into cover before actually getting on. It just requires one more button to actually use your drone, but it gives you a lot more control over what you're doing with the character. This is all pretty default. If you're switching this up, you're kind of crazy, but hey, I'm not going to hate you for it. Let's get into the actual controls because mine are a little strange. Firstly is my chats. I have them on U and I instead of T and Y because sometimes I was accidentally hitting T, like fat fingering T and entering the chat in the middle of a fight, and that sucks because then you can't move or do anything. So I just move them further on my keyboard. I don't have all chat on anyway, and I rarely talk in the team chat, so it's not super important. The only time you should be in the chat anyway is when you're not in the round and you're not like busy doing stuff. So I have caps lock as my push to talk, so I can easily access it, easily reach it in the middle of a fight. Whatever I'm doing, I can use my push to talk and relay that info to my teammates, which is very important. It's important to communicate with your teammates, even though none of us do it, but hey, whatever, you do whatever you want. Lean, I have Q U and E. Q and E is the ultimate lean, guys. If you're putting lean on your mouse, you're messing with your aim. By pulling up your thumb and clicking these buttons as you're trying to aim, it is affecting your aim. I promise you. Learn to use Q and E. It's super effective. It's just as good. It just takes a little bit of practice, so just practice actually getting good with it. I have my crouch and repel stance on my mouse, so that way I can spam my crouch on my mouse as I'm taking gunfights, which almost contradicts the entire lean thing, but also I'm not really crouch spamming, so keep that in mind. I actually use C as my walk, so when I'm trying to like alt walk, some may say, because it's default to alt, I use C so I can reach it with my thumb. I guess I could technically reach alt with my thumb, but I just don't use alt for anything because I just don't like reaching that far over. I'll just use my C and have a good time, okay? I put inspect weapon on my T. Now I can inspect my weapon real easy. You just gotta reach over and check that baby out so I can hit the final kill cam inspect clip. You know what I'm saying? I have melee on G. All these controls, they're all really up to you. Whatever you prefer, you could for sure put lean on your mouse, but I just not recommended from me. That's the one thing. Secondary gadget is something I put on my mouse, my C4, so I can lean, move, and pull the C4 out all at the same time, which allows me to quickly throw C4s and not expose myself for as long. So that's one I actually do recommend that I personally really like. I'm not a controller player, but here's my controller settings. If you really, really want them. Warning, I am terrible on controller. The privacy settings where you're going to be able to change your name. So you can set this to all, including you. You will see your privacy name when you're in a game. I do this to all but squad. So anyone I play with who is in my squad, they will see my name and know which operator I'm playing, but everyone else sees me as a privacy name. They don't know they're playing with Poxonlox until I talk in the chat and they're on my team, or the end of the game where it actually reveals it, which is another setting where you can actually show your name at the end of the game so they know that they were playing with you the whole time. You'd be like, yeah, see, I told you I'm Poxonlox, so you don't believe me because you think Poxonlox sucked, but I got 40 kills, I'm the best. Or you can change this to just the enemies so the people on your team will know, but the enemies won't. This is why I still show up as Poxonlox in my games, but other people don't know that I am Poxonlox. You could just make it to you. So a lot of streamers just set it as you so that you can't see their name. I don't see the point of this now that you can't make custom names, so you just leave it off. Avatar hiding, you'll see in the top right here, I have my avatar on. Once I do that, now when people click on my name, they won't see my logo, which is another way to sneak yourself around if you are a content creator or a streamer or just a guy that wants to stay quiet about who he is, you know, privacy. If you want the other people renamed, this is where they change to like Romeo, Alpha, Bravo, Tango. I just leave this off. The rest is just kind of other little settings that do stuff but don't really matter. Accessibility, this is the last section of the video, and these are some of the most important things in the entire game. Screen shake intensity off. You don't want to be shaking around while you're trying to aim. It makes things harder to see, it makes gunfights easier to lose, so just turn it off if you want competitive edge. Motion blur, same kind of thing. Blurry, can't see what's going on, I don't know. Turn it off. There you go, now you can see. Stun visual effects we already talked about, don't really matter. That's preference. Same with tinnitus effect. Dynamic range is your audio settings. Again, I don't know why it's in here. And then we have maybe the most important, which is your team color, which has to be the yellow. If you are on Team Piss, you automatically win more. It's a proven point. And then enemy color, I have it set to red. You can do whatever you want here. You could be green and fight purple. You can be blue and fight yellow, etc., etc. This one's really up to you. Positive feedback. This is gonna be like when you get points or something, you do something good, and then it gives you that, or you're in a mute jammer, it shows up as purple or green or whatever you want it to be. I might change this to green actually, you know, just for fun. And then negative feedback is when you shoot a teammate in the back of the head and it says friendly fire. You shot him in the back of the head. So I have red because red bad. You can change like the bomb icons and your ping colors, which is crazy. And it just seems so weird to me, but that is something you could totally do too, especially if you have color blindness problems. Then there you go. This is the place to do it. I turn my optic opacity to 70%. I think it's a good mix between being able to see where the enemy is through your sight, but also be able to see your sight, which is important. So I have that set to 70. And that's it for my settings for Rainbow Six Siege for 2026. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you're going to be maxing your settings. Go get the Poxonlox charm by subscribing over on Twitch. Thank you for watching. Happy New Year. Hope it goes well. Happy 2026. We'll see you next year for another settings video. Adios.